Staying Alive UK. Share your story.
Hello and welcome to the Share Your Story podcast series, a business biography, their story so far. My name is Michael de Groot and I am Chief Storyteller at Staying Alive UK. My purpose through this podcast series is to allow my guests, through their stories, inspire you to take the first step towards your new business venture, or maybe if you are already in business, develop your existing business even further. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you have a massive choice in which podcasts you listen to. And I'm really excited to have on the podcast today, Kul Mahay. And before you hear from Kul, as always, I'm going to do a very short introduction. Kul is a former senior police officer having served at the highest levels of leadership for the past 20 years. He works with successful people to overcome challenges that they don't want others to know about. He has worked with clients around the world who have owned businesses or have been in senior leadership positions. Outwardly, they all had the signs of success, but inwardly, they are all human and struggle with the same issues, predominantly most of which are manifested within our mind. He is the founder of one of the fastest growing inner leadership events in the UK, Ignite Your Inner Potential, which is part of his mission to help people and communities understand that they can live life on their own terms and very successfully at that. Kul says, all we need to do is wake up from the trance that is our conditioning. I have done just that, and there is no reason why anyone else couldn't. Welcome to the Share Your Story podcast, Kul. How are you today?
I'm really good. How can you not be on a beautiful winter's morning? I'm sitting in my office and just contemplating the world.
Fabulous. Nothing like a bit of bright sunshine in the UK that cheers us up.
Absolutely. Boost your mood. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Michael.
Oh, really looking forward to chatting with you. I'm really excited to hear your story. I know a little bit about it, but I'm still really interested in hearing it all. So the first question I ask everybody is for you to share a little bit about your personal life, where you were born, a bit about your education, where you now live, maybe a bit about your family. It's up to you. Any hobbies or interests, and so over to you.
Okay, so really, where do I start? Well, when people ask me this question, I typically, and I have no reason why, but I typically go to me as a 10-year-old. There I was, a 10-year-old boy, born and bred in Wolverhampton in the West Midlands. Family of 7 children, my parents and my grandparents at the time living in a 3-bedroom terraced house in Wolverhampton.
Wow.
And we lived just around the corner. Yeah, they were simple days, weren't they? We lived just around the corner from the beautiful mecca that is the Molineux Stadium, of course, home of Wolverhampton Wanderers. I've never really been a football fan, if I have to be honest. But every Saturday morning I used to walk to the end of the street and I used to perch myself on this wall and I used to watch the hordes of supporters walking towards the football ground. But my focus was always on the police officers that were walking with the fans in their beautiful British police officer tunics, and it stood something. It meant something to. It stood for something, and it meant something for me. You know, this British police uniform meant safety and security. And back in those days, we used to be taught at school, if ever you want to know the time or if ever you are lost, go and find a policeman. So you had this sort of image of safety and authority and strength. And I decided from the age of 10 that that's all I wanted to be. I wanted to be a police officer. And that dream was pretty much a 24/7 dream for me for the next several years. And when I got to about 15 and a half years old, in those days, police forces had paid police cadet positions. Essentially, it was an apprenticeship. And I remember out of the 43 police forces up and down the country, I applied to 26 and I got rejected 26 times.
Wow.
But such was my enthusiasm and commitment to joining the police service, I carried on. And on the 27th time, I ended up being accepted by Derbyshire Police. And there I was, a lad from Wolverhampton, never having seen the countryside before. My dad dropped me off on the Sunday for me to start my training, and I saw cows for the first time. I saw fields. and I've made Derbyshire my home now. It's a beautiful county. I've had a wonderful 32 years in the police service, having reached the dizzy heights of temporary chief superintendent.
Okay, and was that literally your first job?
That was my first job. In fact, all of my adult life, literally all of my adult life, was spent in the police service.
Wow.
And I left there about just under 3 years ago. And as much as I love the police service, and I did, and I still think they do a remarkable job. And people, I think the vast percentage of people out there literally have only an inkling as to the job that police officers do, because we can't talk about so much of our job, but it's such an important job and such a dangerous job as well. And they are heroes as far as I'm concerned. And 3 years ago, I left the police service, but that's as a result of a bigger dream that I had 5 years before I left, because I realized, as important as the police service was and as wonderful job as it did, my desire to give back to the community, to make a change, wasn't big enough. I wanted to make a change on a global scale. I wanted to impact on people around the world. And I couldn't do that sitting in Derbyshire with Derbyshire Police.
So where did that feeling come from? How did that come about? Why did you get inspired to want to do that?
Well, I've always been one of these people that has been curious about the world. And, I love people watching. And I've always sort of thought deeply and looked within myself and constantly asked myself questions, in a sort of philosophical kind of way. And about 14 years ago, that sort of curiosity became even deeper, and I found spirituality. And as a consequence of finding spirituality, you start looking at people in a different kind of way, in a much deeper kind of way. And I realized that my singular love in life was people. And that's why I was in the public service, in the public sector. It was because I love people. I love the community. But that desire just seemed to grow stronger and stronger and stronger. And I realized that in the police service, I wasn't transforming lives. What I was doing was getting justice for people or trying to make society safer for people. But I wanted to do much more than that. I wanted to impact on people at a root cause. I wanted to be able to change mindset so that even if people were in a life that they didn't enjoy right now, that they could go on to have a completely new life tomorrow by changing their thinking. And that's where it really sort of embedded itself about 14 years ago. But it was about 5 years, I mean, we're talking about 8 or 9 years ago now. It was 5 years before I left the service that I realized exactly what I wanted to do. And I realized I wanted to become a motivational speaker. I wanted to coach people to change their mindset, train people how to change their mindset. I wanted to train people so that they could develop new techniques and new ways of thinking. And I had this strapline. I know it sounds so cheesy, and I do apologize to your listeners, but I had this strapline that literally kept playing in my head 24 hours a day that said, I want to change the world through the transformation of how people think. Now, this sounds very Nelson Mandela-ish, and I could never aspire to the levels of that great man. But this is my ultimate desire. And so everything I do now is all geared towards that singular strapline that plays out in my head still.
So I'm still a little bit curious, and I still want to go a little bit back into the past and say that, okay, when that 14 years or longer ago, when you were more curious about wanting to help people, were there any teachers or individuals that you were studying or reading, or were you inspired by somebody to want to be like that?
We ask this question so much of people. Who inspired you? Who created your thinking and where you are right now? And I honestly cannot pinpoint it down to a single person. What I can say, the thought came to me of its own. But then what happened was, once that, when you have that thought that's embedded into your mind, then you start researching, don't you?
Yes.
You start researching so many other people. And that's what I did. I researched a collective. I would say it's a collective that has inspired me. So I've looked at the works of, the great people like Tony Robbins,
yes,
Wayne Dyer,
yes,
Les Brown. And I've had the huge honor of meeting both Tony Robbins and Les Brown. Wayne Dyer, I was due to meet, and unfortunately that same year he passed away. I've read the works of Deepak Chopra and Robin Sharma, but then there were other people besides that, the likes of Richard Branson and Mother Teresa. I did a lot of work around research around what Mother Teresa did and what she stood for and who she was, and great people like Nelson Mandela. But then, these are people that we all recognize, but then there are people that are anonymous within life that can also inspire you. Your next door neighbor can be the most inspirational person in the world. It's just that they don't have the accolade that these great people, these famous people do. And I looked around. I'm totally inspirational, totally inspired by leadership. Leadership for me is so important, and 2/3 of my police service were all at leadership level.
yes.
So I enjoyed the challenge of leading and inspiring and motivating other people to get a great result and work towards a common goal. And as I did that, I also started looking around at leadership. Leadership not just in the police service, although there were one or two people in the police service that really did inspire me. When I was a much younger man.
Sure.
But I looked at every single person that I met at my level. I'd look at the way they operated, and I took little fragments from everybody around me to become the person that I was. I wanted to be different. I didn't want to be in a mold of leadership in terms of policing terms or in terms of anybody's terms. I wanted to be authentic as a leader, and these two words, authentic and leadership, are so important in my life. And so I guess I've been inspired by a collective of people, rather than a singular person.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that level, because it's very often not just one person, is it? But I think what you said was really interesting, and that is about your curiosity. So once you got into, I guess, the kind of leadership field, you started to open your mind as well to other possibilities and other ways of doing things. And by being a leader, you needed to also be on top of your game, and perhaps also improve yourself through that process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I call myself the constant seeker. There are so many people out there, if you're looking for a particular service, you'll find people that describe themselves as an expert of this or a master of that or a guru of this. And people have said to me, why don't you call yourself a leadership expert or a leadership master or a leadership guru? It has such a ring to it. And I said, why? Because it's not true. I'm not an expert. I'm not a guru, and I'm not a master, because by the very sense of you even suggesting that, it almost seems to say that you need to learn no more. But we're constantly learning. While ever you are alive, you need to be in a state of constant growth. And whenever I'm talking or whenever I'm working with my clients, I put them in a state of constant growth. I put myself in a state of constant growth every single day.
Yes.
If I am not learning something new, even if it's just a tiny little thing, if I'm not learning something new, I say I'm not growing. And the sad thing is, the truth of it is if you're not growing, you are actually dying. And who would want to die a little every single day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So thanks for that, for kind of revisiting how that all came about. So you left 3 years ago, and then what? What did you decide to do? I mean...
Well, Yeah, it almost sounds like, I left and then suddenly I became this. But actually, the truth of it is that I had this exit strategy, if you like. I had like this glide path down to the new life. And so when I started thinking about what could this new life look like, what could I do to change the world through transforming people? How can I transform people? I started doing an awful lot of research, and I mean an awful lot of research, Michael. I was on Google every single day. Every downtime, I was ringing people up. I was talking to friends, and I think they must have got fed up. And I'm convinced that people thought I'd gone a bit mad in my last 4 or 5 years, because I was, rather than talking about police work all the time, I've been wanting to talk about mindset and psychology and, the world and society and all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, I decided and I realized that my way of changing the world was going to be through speaking and through coaching other people.
Yes.
Coaching people to find themselves at the deepest level. And I realized a term came into my head: inner leadership. So leadership is something that I'm very, very passionate about. But I realize that nobody can be a good leader unless they become a leader of themselves first.
Absolutely.
So inner leadership is something I'm hugely passionate about. Inner leadership is something that I practice myself on a day-to-day basis. And this is what I speak about, what I train about, and what I get other people to think about. So I went away and got all my coaching qualifications. In fact, I just threw in a hypnotherapy qualification at the same time. It just sounded exciting at the time.
Yes.
And I started doing some speaking and just started getting myself immersed into that new world. And I left. I worked up to the busiest day of the year for police officers. And it was just symbolic for me that I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the New Year's Eve on 2014. And, I woke up on the 1st of January 2015. And first thing I did was create my new company. First thing I did was to get my first client, which, funnily enough, was a lady who was on 4 chocolate bars a day. And I did a hypnotherapy session and she went 100 days chocolate free, which is like, wow, amazing. So I realized that, hey, maybe I've got something here after all,
Yes.
And since then, the rest is history, as they say. I've had an international coaching client base. I feel truly blessed. I've managed to speak at all sorts of platforms. I've just come back from India recently. I had a speaking gig in India, and I've created my own motivational inner leadership event, which has been a huge success this year. I have developed my own unique style of coaching called Immersion Coaching, because I'm all about intensity, all about immersing people into the experience of whatever it is that they're doing. In this case, it's coaching.
Mm-hmm.
It is so different to what other people do. I always say to my coaching clients that if you are prepared to work with me, be prepared to have your brain hurt, because your brain will be hurting by the end of the day. And essentially, I lock them in a room with me for 8 to 9 hours, only coming out to go to the loo or to grab something to eat. But it's that level of intensity. And, I've written a book. I'm writing another book at the moment. I wrote my first book called Smash the Habit, which described to people how I gave up eating meat, drinking, smoking after several decades of doing that overnight. 4 years ago, I gave up tea and coffee. Sorry, 3 years ago, tea and coffee overnight, and sugary drinks overnight, and fizzy pop overnight. I've now given up milk for the last 2 years. So I've done an awful lot. And what I've realized about habits is that habits are not the physical habits. They manifest themselves in a physical way, but I'm convinced habits all come from the mindset.
Yes.
So when you're craving that cigarette, or when you're craving that drink, partly, yes, it is psychosomatic. It is physiological. Your body is craving it because it's missing that drug. But a large part of it is your body saying to you that your body is craving it, and your mind saying to you, I just need to have that fix to make myself feel better. But we confuse that with the physiological. So I'm convinced that the mindset has more to play with habits than anything else.
Yeah.
And then following on from that, with me being curious about myself, when I think about that, it then means to me that our lives, the outcomes that we experience in our lives, are as a result of the habits that we have in our minds.
Mm.
So if you were to change the habits of your mind, you will transform the outcomes of your life.
Yeah.
So that's where I come from.
Brilliant. I love the whole thing with habits. And I think this is so underestimated, because everybody is out there, whether they are Horizon programs or these BBC I Can Change You programs, whatever is out there, they very rarely focus on that. And
yeah,
I did some research on this myself with somebody in America called Leo Babuta. His website's called zenhabits.net, and he talks about this and about changing habits, is the only way to achieve anything in your life. And we don't realize, I mean, people get up, they go to the bathroom and they brush their teeth or have a shower or whatever, and they almost do that on autopilot and don't even realize what they're doing in that moment. They're like zombies. And but it's a habit that people have formed, and it's
absolutely,
and it's exactly the same with literally anything. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I can't agree more with that.
I think that we actually live our lives on automatic pilot so much of the time. The vast percentage of our day, if we were to really sit down and do, if you like, a time and motion study on ourselves, we would realize that the vast percentage of our day has been spent on automatic pilot. And this is what I call living in the matrix.
Yes.
We are living in accordance with a program that has been set for us by the conditioning that we've had from the moment that we were born. And that's why we are very habitual in the way that we lead our lives. Now, I have a phrase, or I have a methodology that I think could help break that, and that is to live life intentionally. Live life on purpose. So if everything that you did, now it would take a long time for you to embed this as a new habit, an empowering habit. But if you were to think every single day, every single thing that you did, you actually thought about it, you were intentional about it, you did it on purpose, I think that would transform the way that we did things. I think we would stop doing so much of what we do, and we would start doing so much of what we don't do.
Yes.
Because we know what's good for us. Inherently, nobody needs to stand up in front of people and say, this is good, this is bad. We know that bad food is bad. We know that good food is good. We know that exercise is good. We know that being a couch potato is bad. We know that, you know what I mean? There are so many, we don't really need to know what's good and bad, because we already know it. Our body tells us what's good and what's bad. So I just think that if we were to wake up a bit and start thinking and living our lives in a much more intentional kind of way, we could transform our lives. And I'd like to think that that's what I help people do. I help people to wake up. I help to give people a new set of glasses that they can see the world from a different perspective. They can recognize that there's opportunities around them all the time. It's not like magic. People talk about law of attraction, and they say that you can manifest things into your life. But the things that you're manifesting into your life are already there. And I say that the missing ingredient for the law of attraction is that you don't take action. It's a law of action. If your actions are in alignment with everything that you think, then you will change the outcomes and the experiences in your life. You're more likely to attract the results that you desire.
Yeah. I love it. And after all, the word action is in the word attraction.
Absolutely.
It's in there.
Absolutely.
So, so anybody that's listening, so you worked in let's call it corporate life for a long time, like me, and then something in you decided to start running your own business. And it sounded really, really easy. Day 31, you stopped, and day 1, you started, and you had your first client. But that's really, really amazing. And that's not going to happen to everybody starting their own business. And this podcast is aimed at inspiring people that are sitting on the sidelines, that are unhappy in their jobs, that are, thinking, I want to do something bigger than what I'm doing today. I want to do it on my own. I want to help people. I want to run my own business. How would you, suggest to them in terms of changing from, because there will be people that have been in careers for many, many years like you, and they want to do something on their own, but they're scared. They just don't think it's going to succeed. How did you get, how were you so convinced it was going to happen?
Okay. There is a process that you need to go through. And I will say from the outright that it's not an easy path. But if your passion is strong enough, it's a beautiful path. It's a really exciting path to take. Now, I'm in a very strange position now when I pinch myself, just under 3 years later, that I'm in a position now where I am coaching other business owners or people who are just considering or in exactly the same position that you're talking about right now.
Yes.
I'm thinking about I need to come out of my corporate career. I'm thinking about starting a business. I don't know what my business is about. I think I might fail because I don't think I've got enough knowledge, or how do I get myself noticed in a saturated marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. How do I attract more clients? All of these kind of questions are such common questions. And I take people, I always start off with a 3-hour business strategy session that I have with people. And that's so important. Why? It's because I think that before you do anything, before you take your step, you need to have crystal clear clarity of what your business looks like. If I were to ask you in a single question, how would you respond in 15 to 20 seconds to describe what your business is and how you can help me? It's what they call the elevator pitch.
Yes.
What makes you stand out? What is your unique selling point? So really look at yourself and say and answer to yourself and be honest with yourself. What is different about you? I know what is different with me in terms of other coaches. I have a number of bullet points that are different about me. My age is different to most other coaches. My background as a police officer is so different to other coaches. My specialisms around leadership makes me so different to other coaches. But what really makes me different is my art of inner leadership. And my style of coaching really stands me out from other coaches. So you really need to understand what helps you stand out from other coaches. What's your unique selling point?
Yes.
And then also start doing a bit of dreaming and and ask yourself, so what is it that I want to achieve? Where do I want to be in 5 years' time? What does that look like? And only when you understand the end goal can you start working backwards to say, okay, so what's the process of getting to that end goal? One of the things that I do with my clients on the immersion coaching day, once we smash through a whole load of limiting beliefs, because we all have these limiting beliefs, this language inside our head, this negative conversation that tells you you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that, you haven't got the money, etc., etc. Once we've smashed through all of that, we then get into the empowerment stage where we start visualizing where you want to be in 3 years' time. And then I create a roadmap. We work backwards. We create a monthly roadmap for the next 3 years to get to where we want to get to. For me, in simple terms, it's no different than project management.
Yes.
So most of us who have come from a corporate world, come from the job that we're in right now, will have a whole host of skills that we're calling a very corporate name to, but actually they can work in life as well if you apply them to life. So there's just a few hints of what we could do, but there's a whole raft of measures that people can take. But I think you really need to understand why you want to do it. What is your driving passion for this? What's your purpose? Yeah. And then understand what it is that you want to do. Where is it that you want to be? And I think visualizing 3-5 years ahead is a really good way of doing that. And then you can start building on how you're going to, what could that path possibly look like? And in order for you to do that, you really need to free your mind up from the constraints of your thinking that you have right now, because those constraints are as a result of the job that you've got right now.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because people that take jobs, they go for interviews and they want to get to the interview and they're desperate to get the job because really the end goal is they need money to live on. But they don't do the kind of planning that you're suggesting that you should be doing to run your own business.
Yes.
They don't do the same kind of planning and discussion. And when they go for a job interview, you know, they just kind of, okay, what job can I get? Let me get into that job. Once they're in that job and they've been working there for a few years, they're unhappy because
Absolutely.
they haven't done that planning and decided what's your roadmap, where do you want to get to, what does good look like, but yeah, I think it's interesting because I can see that in my teenage son who's kind of just got a job because he needs money, but he hasn't really thought about where's that going to take him in the future.
Absolutely, and I think part of that, Michael, is because we're in this automatic sort of functioning state that we're in. So we automatically are told by society you need money. We're told by society that the way to get money is to go and get a job. We're also taught by society that if you get more qualifications, you're likely to get a better job. And these are the things that society traditionally teaches us. So it's no wonder that as individuals to run our own lives, we get into this mindset.
Yeah.
For me, it took me, until my late 40s for me to understand and realize, wow, do you know what? I don't need to live life this way. I actually can live life in a wholly different way.
Yes.
I can still earn money, but I can live life on my terms. I don't have to live life just like everybody else is living. And that's the truth of it. And I'm convinced that there are people out there currently, right now, sitting behind their desks, working away tirelessly in jobs that they don't enjoy, worrying about taking the paycheck home, worrying about their health, worrying about their relationships, worrying about their happiness. And the truth of it is they don't need to be worrying to that level. They don't need to be in that situation. All it takes is that initial courage to start thinking in a different way and start planning, as you're saying. If you don't plan, then you're never going to get to the true potential. My event is called Ignite Your Inner Potential. And the reason why I called my event Ignite Your Inner Potential is that I honestly and truly believe that every single one of us on this earth has got 5, 10, 20 times more power inside of us than we ever thought possible. And all we need to do is switch it on.
Yes.
And we're not flicking the switch. So many of us are too scared to touch that switch because it might blow up.
It might blow up. It might blow up in our faces.
Exactly. I mean, they treat it like it's a ticking time bomb or something like that. But it's this huge power that we have inside of us. And having switched from corporate to running your own business, as I do, it's not an easy path. Of course it's not. But they say, don't they, the best things in life aren't easy. But once you've hit it, when you do it, Michael, when you get that success, when you get that first client, when you get the next client, when you upscale your business, when you grow bigger, when you get people asking you to come on their podcasts or come and speak here, then actually I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
I mean, recently I was reached out to by University of Derby and said, we've heard about you. We are training police leaders. We've got a contract to train police leaders in 5 different police forces on leadership. And we know your background, but we also know that you specialize in inner leadership, which we think is really exciting. Would you become an associate lecturer for us? And I jumped at the chance because I thought, this is amazing. This university has reached out to me. And now I'm just going through the process of becoming an associate lecturer, but I've already delivered a whole raft of training for them. And I'm doing the same now. I got approached only yesterday on a Sunday morning. I got approached to do the same for schools.
Yes.
So it's amazing, when you get it right, when these are things happening to you, and it's not magic, this is purely by setting your intentions and making sure that all your actions are in line with your dreams and aspirations, magic appears to happen. I always describe my life as being a very miraculous kind of life in the sense that everything seems to now come towards me. Yeah. And that's what happens.
I love it. And it's being on purpose, and being clear on that purpose. And I think this is where people can fall down, even when they're deciding, right, I'm going to leave corporate life, I'm going to start my own business. But having really that purpose about what it is you want to do in the world is so vitally important. And your purpose in terms of inner leadership, I was going to say to you earlier on, actually, schools need this. So I'm delighted to hear that you're going to be doing this in schools, not just universities, but schools as well, which is
absolutely
amazing.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait because wasn't it Michael Jackson that once said the children are our future?
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. It sounds very cheesy when you say it nowadays, but it is the truth, isn't it? We're in an aging society now, and children literally are the future. They are going to create our future of how we are looked after in our old age, what society, which direction society takes, etc., etc., etc. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a whole generation of leaders out there in the future that thought in such an empowered way? There'd be less wars, there'd be less poverty, there'd be less friction in society, there'd be more embracing of difference in society. I just think it could be an incredible society. Now, before anyone says or even thinks that that's impossible, you can't have leaders like that, and it's almost like airy-fairy. You only have to look at the Canadian Prime Minister. If you look at him and how he behaves, I think that is so different to any other leader that we've had for such a long time. And he's only in his 40s or something like that, Justin Trudeau. But when you look at the way he behaves, I think for a big country like Canada, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Now, imagine if we had leaders like that around the world, and imagine the unity and harmony that we could have around the world. It could be quite an incredible place.
Incredible. Yeah. And you could be teaching or training those leaders of the future. So absolutely yeah. Oh, that would be amazing.
Every single one of us could be influencing those people as we go through life. And the wisdom that we impart and the communication that we have with them is so important. We need to be very conscious of what comes out of our mouth. We need to be conscious of the thoughts that we have that feeds our own actions. And we need to be conscious of the fuel that we pour into our own minds, And it is living. This is what I mean about living life intentionally. Always be conscious, always be aware, and always think first.
Brilliant. So what about your own business then? And do you have, I mean, I get the lecturing bit, the schools bit. Is there a bigger vision apart from your events that you're doing? Is there something else that you want to achieve? Because you mentioned right at the beginning, you mentioned the word globally. So absolutely. I'll be interested to know what your vision is for your business.
Okay, I have a very big vision.
I thought so.
I have a very big vision, and I'm sure that you have an equally big vision. But mine is that I want to be going around the world. I want to be doing what I'm doing here in the UK. And yes, I have had an international client base for my coaching. I've coached people from Saudi Arabia to Australia to America to India. So I'm very blessed around that. But in terms of the speaking, I've spoken in a few countries. I went to Ukraine last year. I've been to India. And we're doing some planning around going to Australia and taking my event to Australia. But really what I want to be doing is having set countries around the world where I can take Ignite Your Inner Potential to my event and create a 3-day event that's going to happen on an annual basis around the world. And ultimately, in about 5 or 6 years' time, I want to be in a position where my partner and I can solely focus on the business, and 50%, and yet 50% of our time is left free for the two of us to go around the world and create an event that can be delivered free of charge to the most underprivileged communities around the world. Those people who typically cannot pay the kind of money that you tend to pay to come to any kind of personal development, inner leadership, motivational event. So I want to create an event that truly does touch people at the bottom end, as well as doing all the stuff that I'm doing. I coach senior leaders, business owners at the top end. I want to touch something at the bottom end as well. So 50% of my time is going to be around literally changing the way the most impoverished people in the world think, to break their patterns of thinking, break their patterns of behavior, and hopefully lead much more empowered lives going forward. That's the ultimate dream.
Wonderful.
And in order for me to do that, I need to have a very successful business that's going to give me the financial freedom in order to be able to do that.
Yes.
And when you start getting into business, you start thinking in a certain way. You start thinking beyond what you traditionally thought was going to be your business. So I'm still doing all my coaching and my speaking and stuff like that. You know, I'm writing books, and I'm writing another book now. But I'm also, just about to launch a website, a membership site called the $1 Club. Mm-hmm. And literally for $1 a month, anybody in the world can join this membership site. I'm hoping to launch that by Christmas. But anybody around the world can join this membership site and access all of my hypnosis products, all of my online training, all of my other digital products. And I just want to make it free as possible. But I want people to invest a dollar mm-hmm. to give that sense of, I've paid, so I need to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you what I have found is when you give things for free, it's just not valued. People don't value it.
No.
So people need to value it, even if it's only for $1.
Totally agree. Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I've got a few more questions left, Kul. Absolutely fascinating. If you could think of just one bit of advice that you would give aspiring business owners, what would that advice be?
I've one bit of advice. It's a tough one, actually, because there's so much I could say. But I guess my one advice is, if I could put it into a sentence rather than a word or two, I would say, don't give up. When you doubt yourself, always look at your deeper reason and rationale as to why you started the business. Yeah. So your go-to position whenever you doubt yourself should always be when things aren't going well, when you're doubting yourself, when the world seems like a very lonely or dark place, and it can be in business when you're starting off. Being an entrepreneur and a business owner can be the loneliest place in the world. But when you get into that state, always, always, always go back to that point in time when you came up with a vision of having a business and say, why?
Yeah.
Why did I create this? Because that thing which we call the purpose is singularly, I think, the most powerful driver for anything that we do in life.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And then my very, very last question is, how can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you? How can they learn about your event that you're doing?
Well, I try to hide myself an awful lot, but I find I fail at that. I'm so boring that you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I'm so boring that all you have to search for is Kul Mahay on any one of those.
Kul Mahay.
That's as easy. Regards my yes, it's very easy, isn't it? It's so boring. And the same for my website. My website is www.kulmahay.com.
Yeah.
But in terms of my event, which is really going to be exciting, I launched this event this January. It was my first event. It was part of the overall picture. I launched that in January this year, and my next one is going to be January 2018 on the 21st of January. And I'm going to be celebrating its first anniversary. It's been a huge success this year. I've held it all across the Midlands. It's being recognized as the biggest personal development event in the country, and certainly the biggest in the Midlands. I'm in negotiations to take it to Ukraine and to Australia, so I feel truly blessed. But I wanted to bring it back to my home city where I've never really done anything. So on the 21st of January, it's going to come to Pride Park Football Stadium, Derby County's football stadium in Derby. On the 21st of January. And traditionally we've had like 100 people there, and I'm aiming for 400 people, and we're going to have a day of event finishing at 4:30. But then we're going to go on to have an after-event party to celebrate its first anniversary, and there's going to be live entertainment. And there's food included within a very small ticket price of only just less than £40. Live entertainment, dance floor, bar open, and we're supporting an incredible charity called Sheenam's Wish. I'm hoping to get young Sheenam talking, but this is all about junior Huntington's disease, which is a horrible, debilitating disease. But she's such an inspiring young lady who I've known for a few years, and we want to raise money for that cause. You can find details of the event just by searching for Ignite Your Inner Potential on Eventbrite.
Brilliant.
And I can send you a link if you want.
I will definitely include the link in the show notes as well.
So,
that'd be brilliant. Yeah. Oh,
the aim is, the goal is to raise a roof when it comes to Derby Football Stadium on the 21st of January, create as much noise as possible, because I am the only motivational speaker in the world, as I know, who has Bhangra dancing as my breakout theme. So whoever's going to come, you better get ready to dance.
Yay! That sounds amazing. That will be worth it.
Oh, it's loud. It's loud, but a very, very loving environment.
Oh,
my crew is incredible.
Oh, fantastic, Kul. It sounds amazing, and I'm sure it will be an amazing success as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed hearing your story and what you're up to. And I know you've given some amazing tips to people who are looking to start their own business, or even...
I truly hope.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And even ignite their current business, because there's lots of people out there
absolutely
running their businesses, perhaps not feeling as motivated as they were when they first started. And it's for them as well to hear some of these tips and ideas to get going. And who knows, there might be some clients as a result for you as well by listening to this.
That'd be really good. But I just would say one thing, in the 3 years that I've been in my business, there have been periods, particularly during the early times, where you have your dry months. Now, every business owner hates that whole, even thinking about dry months. Guys, you're going to get dry months. You're going to get those periods where your clients aren't coming so fast and hard, or you're not getting the opportunities. Rather than put your head in your hands and start fretting about it, what I do when I have my dry months now, I use that time to get creative.
Yes.
Get creative in your business. Think bigger, think harder. The businesses that survived and thrived during the recession are not those that cut and slash their money and their staff to make the savings, to cut their costs so they felt they could survive. The businesses that really thrived were the ones that got creative and started doing things differently and actually started thinking about bigger things to do in the future. And that's another piece of advice I'd get everyone to do during those dry months.
You're absolutely right. And this podcast was born during a dry month. And so, that...
Living proof.
Pardon?
Living proof.
Absolutely. There are some new things you can create for your own self and for your business when you've got a dry month, because then you've got thinking time, you've got project time, you've got lots of things you can be doing when, pushing the business forward without actually having to work for clients during that period. So,
yes. And the great thing is, that creative stuff that comes out of that quiet period that you might have, that creative design that you might have had in your mindset, that plan, that idea, that actually might lead to even more business going forward. Even more business. So I think we just need to learn to breathe a bit and give ourselves time and have faith in ourselves.
Totally. I love that. Thank you so much, Kul. Thank you for your time. Welcome. It's been brilliant having you on this podcast, and I really look forward to seeing you in person one day very soon too.
I look forward to it, Michael. Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed being on the show and sharing my life with you.
Brilliant. Take care. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Staying Alive UK. Share your story.